Right.
Hi there, welcome to a Brit Does Baseball Does podcast. I'm Gaz. It's sunny. It's the morning. It's the first morning episode I've filmed in about 6 months. I'm very happy for it. It means I get the rest of my Saturday back. George is here as well. Hi, George.
Hello. Glad to be back. Very glad to be back.
Yeah, it's been a while since George has been on. He's been scouring the earth, looking for hope in the 2026 New York Mets, which is the premise for today's episode. It's going to be a New York Mets focused episode because. As an outsider, I can't think of a team that's been more up and down the last 3 years than the New York Mets. And I feel like George needs to vent some frustrations out at Kodai Senga and the rest of the rotation. And maybe also Juan Soto for not being there most of the time.
Yeah, I do feel abandoned by Juan Soto, like a father who's left. I feel all alone. I appreciate the opportunity to get some feelings out.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what we're here for. And we do offer these sessions for any fans that want to come on and talk about their team. Obviously, George is one of our co-hosts, so he gets a special privilege of actually just popping on the podcast. But if you do want to come on and rant to your team, provided it's not someone like the White Sox or the Twins, let me know. We can maybe get it sorted. But this is a normal episode. So we're back with Boo's Hot Takes. It's been a while. I know it's been a while for George for his hot takes because his last appearance was on the Rounders Roundup, and famously, Boo doesn't like to work midweek. So she's back with some hot takes. We've got 4 hot takes today because it's been a while. For those of you that don't know how hot takes work, we use the Nando Spice Scale because, well, we're British and we're unoriginal, I guess. If you think the take is really hot, you can use very hot. If you think it's, yeah, I agree with it, it's mild. If you think it's outrageous, it's off the scale, it's Perry Tamer. That now appears on the menu. I don't know why Nando's put that back on the secret menu. That was one of the best parts about you. George, are you ready for 4 extra juicy hot takes?
I'm ready.
Perfect. We will quick fire these as quick as we can. Number 1, PCA. Wasn't worth the extension. Isn't worth the hype. Where do you have that?
I feel like this is coming from a place of personal frustration, maybe from you.
I wouldn't care to comment.
I think I'll put it at, for now, medium, just because there are so many other players who had good years last year who are just struggling and not doing well, and I'm still expecting them to turn it around. And I think at the very least with PCA, you're getting like elite defense. So I don't know. I think like there's definitely an argument that last year was not sustainable, especially the home runs, and like the second half of last year, if I remember correctly, was pretty rough compared to the first half.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
So maybe like you look at maybe an in-season extension rather than doing it in the off-season. I don't know, but and it hurts as a Mets fan, obviously, but I think he'll turn it around.
Yeah, I've got this as hot because, as you said, the defense hasn't taken a step back. That's still there. I think the frustrations lie around like his hitting and kind of the discipline. And you watch him in the at bats, and he gets frustrated. He's like a spoiled child at the moment. Like if he strikes out or he pops up, he must be racking up thousands of dollars in baseball bat bills currently. He's just smashing them on the ground and everything. But yeah, it's like the first half, obviously last year was immense. He finished the year with 31 home runs. I think he got like 27 before the All-Star break or something ridiculous like that. But since then, it's just been like, oh, it's a high fastball. Well, he's striking out. Oh, he's going to roll over. Oh, and he's still got the speed. The fact is, he's probably the best bunter in the league, or one of them, and that's a good asset to have. But it's just not been there. I think the extension, 6 years, 115 million. I think that's quite a team-friendly deal, along with quite a few of the others we've had. But I'm going to go hot because I think PCA will turn it on again with the offense. He's got the power, and it's just a matter of when, not if, I think. But ask me again in a month's time, and it might be another Kyle Tucker situation, which will be very hurtful. We're moving up to Canada, everyone's favorite country involved in baseball, it seems, like forever. And they haven't got off to a hot start. They've been bitten by the injury bug 10 times, it seems, at the moment. The hot take itself is, despite the very slow start, the Blue Jays will still win 95 games this year. Where would you put that on the scale?
I'm going to put that at hot. I don't think they'll win 95 games. I think they will maybe get a wild card. I think the thing that worries me about their slow start is that other than Vladdy, I don't know who I'm relying on to pick it up. And like looking at Bichette play this year, I'm not going to say that they're missing him, but I think last year's Blue Jays had more players and options where I'm like, okay, well, if that guy can just turn it on, then they can win a lot of games. And I know they have a lot of the same pieces, but it does kind of feel like they're all just waiting for Vladdy to really kick it up a gear. And he hasn't been bad to start the year, but I think he's got one home run. So it's not like he's kind of dragging them to victories or kind of inspiring innings or anything like that. So I think they'll be a good team, and I think they'll get into the wild card, but I don't think they'll win 95.
Yeah, I've got that as very hot, to be honest. I'm bordering Perry Tamer just because of the injuries they've sustained. I mean, you look at, I've got a list of their injuries here. We're recording this on the morning of the 18th of April, UK time, whatever that is in American time, work it out. And then so they had Dalton Varsho left the game yesterday with knee discomfort, so he's added to their injury list. And then names Trey Savage, Jose Barrios, and Shane Bieber in the rotation. They've not even taken to the mound yet. George Springer's currently out with a toe fracture. Addison Barge's got sprains. It says left ankle sprain, but I believe he's got pain in both of his ankles, which is very impressive. He must be 50. Cody Ponce, who came over from the KBO, he tore his ACL in his first start, so he'll probably be done for the year. Alejandro Kirk's out with a thumb fracture, which is very unfortunate, especially when you're a catcher, because you kind of need them thumbs to work, even to click the bloody PitchCom buttons. Anthony Santander is probably going to be gone for the whole year with a labrum surgery. That's looking like probably one of the worst contracts in baseball history. I'm not saying Anthony Rendon level, but pretty close. As to kind of their current schedule, I believe they're currently 7-13. They've kind of had a mixed start to the year. I know they swept the A's in the first series, but then they lost to the Rockies, they lost to the White Sox, lost to the Dodgers, lost to the Twins, lost to the Brewers. They lost their first game to the Diamondbacks. So they've kind of had a mixed strength of schedule. And obviously the Dodgers and the Brewers are tough opponents. But there's enough in there where you would have expected them to get off to a better start than they have. And I think losing to the Rockies and the White Sox, like losing 3 of 4 to the White Sox with the fourth game being postponed, is just, you can't really help that. So I don't think they're going to win 95 games. I fear for them. They say like April is the month you just need to survive. Like you don't want too many injuries, or if you do have an injury, get it out the way early. It's what the Cubs have done with Matthew Boyd. But it's just injury after injury after injury. I know they signed Patrick Corbin, who was famously not very good for the Nationals for a while, turned it on with the Rangers last year, and he's now starting for them. And if he's currently your de facto ace, which I don't think he is, you're in a bit of trouble, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think I realized how bad the injury situation was, but I mean, if those guys all come back around the same time, maybe it gives them a bit of a spark. But yeah, that's pretty dire.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. It's like they're still waiting for these guys to come back, and then your starting centre fielder goes down injured with Dalton Varsho, who's a very, very good player. And I think your Savage and Barrios will probably be back at the similar times, and maybe Bieber, but it does bring into question how much that Kyle Tucker signing would have meant to them, because I think that would have propelled them. And I'm going to say, speaking from experience, being a one-man team isn't a sustainable business model in the game of baseball. And I think the Blue Jays losing Bichette, not getting Tucker, they are very reliant on Vladdy, and ultimately Vladdy sometimes isn't going to have it. He's not superhuman. But what do I know? We're going to do a bit of catchers talk, which is weird because normally we have Alan's catching corner, but Alan's not here today, so we're going to try and do the best that we can. One hot take that was sent in was that Yadier Molina is the greatest catcher of all time. So for those of you that don't know, I've only been a baseball fan since 2023. George, you're fairly newish to the game as well.
Yeah, like 2020, 2021 kind of, yeah.
Yeah, so you might have caught maybe the back end of Yadi's career, or only play for one team, St. Louis Cardinals. So I've never actually seen him play, but I have pulled up his stats. So the hot take is that he is the greatest catcher of all time. He put up a 41.6 WAR, 176 home runs. He batted 277. He stole 71 bases, which is always impressive for a catcher.
That is impressive.
Yeah, I think Cal Riley will never get that high. I think Alejandro Kirk could only dream of stealing one base.
Yeah.
I say that Giancarlo Stanton actually stole a base this year.
Did he? I didn't see that.
First week of the season, he stole one against the Marlins.
He runs with his legs almost like completely straight. You know, it's kind of impressive to see.
I don't think he. I don't cartilage left in them knees. So how he got down for a stolen base, I'll never know. But yeah, Yadi's stats: he's a 10-time All-Star, 2-time World Series winner, 9-time Gold Glove. He's got a Silver Slugger, 4-time Platinum Glove. For those who don't know what a Platinum Glove is, I don't know either. I think it's the best defender in each league. So yeah, where have you got Yadi Molina being the greatest of all time on catches as a hot take?
I mean, it's tough because, like, if you think about like the greatest catches of all time, and you sent me this hot take in advance, and I did a quick Google. I'm like, oh yeah, well, like Yogi Berra, like, okay, I never saw Yogi Berra play because I was negative 30 years old, and I never saw like Bench or Johnny Bench play. But you know, in terms of like recent history, it's either Yadier Molina or maybe like going back a little bit further, Mike Piazza. And because I have watched 1,000,001 highlight videos and videos about Mike Piazza, I will say that it's very hot and that Mike Piazza is the best catcher of all time, because really it's arbitrary. I mean, you can't, I mean, it's probably Yogi Berra. So it like none of them really are the best, but I'll go very hot to rep Mike Piazza.
Yeah, I think Mike Piazza is a much better catcher than Yadier Molina. I don't know if this comes from a Cardinals fan. I didn't go into sort of the detail with it, but I looked at. I'm on Baseball Reference, and I'm currently looking at sort of WAR, so total in their career. So Johnny Bench has got the most WAR for a catcher, which is 75.2. And as I always say, what is WAR good for? Ranking baseball players, nothing more. But some people could take a note on that. So Johnny Bench has a WAR of 75.2. Mike Piazza's in 5th. He's actually got 0.1 WAR more than Yogi Berra.
Wow, so, there we go.
Yeah.
Yankees in the mud.
Yeah, Piazza's in 5th. The top 5, just for interest: Johnny Bench, Gary Carter, Ivan Rodriguez, Carlton Fisk, and Mike Piazza. You go all the way down. Yadier Molina's in 22nd place of all time. A couple of other people that are between them. Buster Posey is at 14. Giant, Cal's favorite player ever. Ted Simmons, Jorge Posada, Jason Kendall has actually got the same WAR as him. I think my point is, as you said, it's a very subjective, like calling the player the best of all time. I think it's easy in other sports like basketball. It's LeBron or it's Michael Jordan. That's the debate. In football, it's Messi, Ronaldo. You go back, it's Pele, it's Maradona. Baseball's a lot harder because the jobs are so different. It's like everyone in football ultimately is kicking a ball. And unless you're a goalkeeper, like I know defenders are going to be different to strikers, but it's a similar sort of vibe. Here, you're comparing catchers to hitters to pitchers. And I know we're just talking about catchers and I'm just clocking this in the sentence I'm saying. But saying someone's the greatest of all time is very subjective. But the fact that there's 21 catchers ahead of him with WAR, I think it's a Perry Tamer take. I'm going to put it out there. I think you're right with the Yogi Berra, Mike Piazza, Johnny Bench. Those were the names that came to my mind. And I have never seen any of these guys play. I've seen a little bit of Mike Piazza. I know how good he was. Joe Mauer, longtime Twin, he's up there as well. So I'm going to say very hot, and I'm going to assume this is a Cardinals fan who sent it in. If we were talking about just as a Cardinals, then don't you dare disrespect Pedro Pajes. That man is the best catcher. Give him a 20-year extension. Can't hit. Defense is starting to slide, but just give him a chance. That's as probably a stat base as we're going to get. Our fourth and final hot take, which I will kick off because then I'm going to let George take the lead for the rest of the episode. And this links into the main subject. So the hot take is the Mets will still win the NL East despite the current slump. That's
what is the hottest on the Hernandez Spice Scout?
On the Spice Scout, it's very hot. You can go off menu with the Perry Tamer like I've done. You could go. There is stuff hotter than Nando's in life. I don't know if you want to go completely off menu and go to a different restaurant. Get like a Carolina Reaper chicken wing or something.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take the hottest I can get. I have less than zero faith. It's not fair because it's what we're less than or just over 10% of the way through the season, and the best recent season in Mets history since the World Series was 2024, where they had a terrible record. They were 20 games below 500, and then they came back and made it to the NLCS and faced the Dodgers. And that's like the best memories I have as a Mets fan is that season. And that started with the team in absolute despair. But it's not that it feels different this time around, but I think people just have less faith that the steps were taken right to begin with, because at least in that season you could be like, well, I know Nimmo. I love Nimmo. He's a Met for life. I love Pete Alonso. Like, he's my guy. These guys will turn it around. Jeff McNeil, Sean Manaea. Like, I love these guys. I've fallen in love with them. But there's no current connection for these fans at all with guys like Bichette, Polanco, Marcus Semien. So they're not going to give them the same leeway to be like, all right, they're struggling now, but I trust them. They're going to turn it around. And I think there's just an overall frustration that it seems more and more likely that David Stearns just got it wrong. Like, he thought he could build this roster around run prevention and getting contact and putting the ball in play. And they've been terrible at those three things so far. So either it's all going to turn around and these players are going to become, closer to their average and will probably end up around 500 and maybe sneak into the wild card, or this is just going to be a terrible season full of terrible results. I mean, like, the obvious mitigating factor is that Soto's out, but that doesn't explain scoring like 2 runs over the course of 4 games and then just like looking absolutely terrible on defense. And yeah, I feel I guess what would be interesting to know is, because when the off season happened, Mets fans were like, the Bo Bichette thing wasn't a panic. We were always in for him. It's a good signing. He can play third. Polanco, he had a great year last year. This is all shaping up. Like, Semien, he has great defense at least. But then the rest of the baseball world were saying things like, oh, this is just a panic. They don't know what they're doing. They shouldn't have gotten rid of Pete Alonso and Brandon Nimmo. It's like, I obviously was in the former saying this will work out. But as an outsider, were you always thinking this isn't going to work out? Were you thinking this might work out?
I didn't think it would work out straight away. I thought it would take a little bit of time to bed in. So I've actually got this hot take just as hot, because I do think, on paper, you guys have probably got the best 1 to 9 positional lineup in the NL East, and I'll maintain that. Obviously, looking at your current record, you're 7-13, 6 games back from the Braves. But you look at the rest of your division, and the Braves have got off to a really hot start. They're 13-7, but then you've got the Marlins, Nationals, and Phillies all with losing records. Like, Marlins and Nationals are both 9 wins, 11 losses. The Phillies are 8-11. So yeah, you've got off to a terrible start, but Soto's been missing for 10 games now?
Yeah, he should be back next week.
Yeah, and that's, you're currently on a 9-game losing streak, but you also need to remember who you've played in those 9 games. You've played, one of them was against the mighty Cubs. There's, it's not to our own horn there, but you did have to go to the Dodgers. No, did the Dodgers come to you in the week?
No, we were in LA. Yeah.
So you went to LA and you lost 3 to the Dodgers. And to be honest, you lost 1 game 2-1, 1 game 4-0. They're not blowouts. Prior to that, you obviously got swept by the A's. That was probably a bit disappointing. But the A's can be a sneaky good team. So I think what people need to take into account is you've played some tough opponents. Like, you took 3 from 4 against the Giants, and I know the Giants aren't having a great start. You took 2 from 3 from the Pirates, and they're looking good this year. I didn't come into this weekend series between the Cubs and the Mets thinking we're going to sweep. I'd love to. I thought the Cubs would win 2, and you'll take 1, because that's every team's on a long slump. You're going to get it right at some point. and you probably weren't going to get it right against the Dodgers. But if you had played any other team in the league other than the Dodgers midweek, I think you guys would have broken the losing streak. But instead, because you've had the Dodgers, it's gone from a 5-game losing streak all the way up now to a 9-game losing streak, and now the spotlight's on. But I've got this take as hot because I do believe it's the individual players are good players. Jorge Blanco had a great year. Juan Soto, I won't go into, but obviously that man's generational talent. If it wasn't for Ohtani, he'd have had an MVP by now. Bo Bichette, I think, will get it right. Luis Robert, centre field, he's actually looked quite good.
He's looked great. He's been the one bright spot where you've been like, okay, that was a great trade. And he's looked really good actually on defense as well, which has been a rare point for any of those new signings. So yeah, he has looked great.
So I'm not as I know it's harder when you're a fan of the team to be like, this is shit, this is awful, we're not going to do anything. But looking from an outsider point of view, I had fear. I still thought you guys were going to win the NL East. I actually did predict the Marlins, and I think that I was drunk when I made the prediction, so I've had to back it. But I think if you ask me when I'm sober, the Mets have the best lineup. What does let you down is your rotation. I think there's no secret about that. You needed to go and get a proper ace to pair with Nolan McLean, and again, Nolan McLean's looked really good. But I think it's hot because every team's going to go through a slump. If you get your slump out the way early, you can come back a better team. If you could do me a big favor and wait until your next series against the Twins to get out the slump, that would be great. But that's just speaking selfishly as a Cubs fan. But I think you guys still have a good chance to actually do some damage in the East. What's going to prevent you is Atlanta look good this year again. So
they do.
I don't know. But Phillies are only a game and a half ahead of you. And no one's really talking about them because you guys have just shat the bed for a week.
The Phillies don't look impressive at all. And I think they have similar issues with their lineup that I don't think will turn around as much as the Mets lineup could turn around. Like those players, aging, unproven, younger, don't have that track record, or like aging. I don't think there's as much potential. But then again, like they are good players. So and the Braves thing is just like, I think everyone should have expected the Braves to be good again this year, just because last year was probably an outlier. So I think that's, that maybe could have been expected. I think where maybe I differ slightly is that I'm slightly more optimistic about the pitching, just because I think Peralta is going to be who he always is, which is like have a sub-4, maybe even sub-3.5 ERA, start a lot of games, eat a lot of innings, and he might not be an ace in the postseason, but he'll get you through a season. And McLean, I think, has looked as good as any pitcher in baseball to start this year. Like that game, the one you mentioned against the Dodgers that was 2-1 against Yamamoto, I mean, that was like one of the best like pitching duels I've seen in a forever. So I feel, and Clay Holmes in his second year as a starter, I think will have a bit more longevity than he did in his first. So I'm hoping he can keep that up. And then Christian Scott is currently on rehab in AAA. And I think the sooner we can get him in instead of probably David Peterson, the better. And then Senga, I don't know. Maybe we trade for someone close to the deadline, but it does feel like every 5 days we're punting a game. Well, actually, with Senga and Peterson, it's more like 2 out of every 5 days we're punting a game at least. But I think there's potential there. And the guys like Devin Williams have looked really good. And I think that was, for me, it was like, well, is Devin Williams actually going to be able to be the closer that Edwin Diaz was? And so far, the answer is yes, although he hasn't pitched in like a week because we've just been getting blown out. So, yeah, I guess I have optimism that the Mets can become an average team. I struggle with the optimism that these Mets can do what the 2024 Mets did and just become like a great team. That would be my worry.
That's fair enough. I don't think that's outrageous either. I'm probably being a little bit more outrageous with me thinking they can still win it.
I appreciate it though. It means a lot.
Hey, I'm going to be a nice guy because you let us win 12-4 yesterday. So kind of the why, and we sort of ended with that hot take for a reason. It's that's the end of Boo's hot takes, by the way. Boo will be back whenever we next do a proper episode. She doesn't like the Rounders Roundup. She's very, very lazy. Honestly, she's at the whole off season off and is like, I will work once a fortnight and I have to pay so much for that dog. It's like, what do I get back in return? 4 hot takes, and I could have done.
She's living the dream. That's what you want out of life, really.
Yeah. No. think she's still asleep, actually. She got up. Sorry, little boost story. I got up and fed her. Well, I put some food out for her. And then we live on like a house I've got. It's like 3 floors. So the recording studio / my office is the top floor. Bedroom's on the middle floor, and then her food was on the ground floor. So I've come upstairs. I've fed the dog. Food's downstairs. I've come upstairs. She's got up, and then she just looks at me. And I go, do you want to come upstairs and record food? And then she went downstairs. So I know where she is. And that's her food. Anyway, the main crux of this episode is it's the roller coaster of being a Mets fan. From speaking from an outsider, there aren't too many baseball clubs where it's like a roller coaster, right? You could be a fan of like, the White Sox, the Rockies, the Pirates. Pirates may be a bit different nowadays, but you always expect that team to be pretty bad. Likewise, the Dodgers, Yankees, Brewers, etc. You're a fan of those teams and you expect them to be good, and you're allowed to get annoyed when they're not. But the Mets since 2024 have just been a total roller coaster. As you mentioned earlier, the first half of 2024, they were 20 games under 500. Grimace comes out, throws a first pitch. Hawk Tuagel, remember her? She threw out a pitch. Jose Iglesias, Enrique's cousin, sang OMG on the field. And it was a feel-good story. You got to the wild card. You made it all the way to the DS against the Dodgers and could have won that series. Oh, sorry, to the CS against the Dodgers and could have gone to the World Series. 2025 rolls around. Juan Soto signed, an $11 billion contract for 35 years. Vibes are good. Clay Holmes comes over from the Yankees, first-year starter. David Peterson looks amazing. Kodai Senga looked like the ace he was from the year before. Sean Manaea was looking decent. First half of 2025, best team in baseball. And then the wheels come off. And the wheels then got completely changed out in the 2026 offseason. You shipped out everyone that wasn't nailed down, brought in everyone and their nan. And I think we're kind of experiencing what people expected, which was quite a slow start. So I guess my first question is, being a Mets fan, would you agree with the sentiment that it's been a wild roller coaster the last 3 years?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think, and it all starts obviously with the takeover by Steve Cohen. I think it feels crazy to complain as a Mets fan because you know that you are more fortunate than all but one other baseball team in the league in terms of the amount of money you're able to spend, like the amount of engagement from your owner, the amount they want to win. But in some, and that means like other baseball fans will turn around and be like, yeah, you shouldn't be complaining. You've got like 400 million payroll. But it almost makes the losing more frustrating because you're like, we're spending all this money and we still can't put it together. And I think like a great example of that is that when we made those big signings, we signed Scherzer and what was the other pitcher we signed that we
Justin Verlander?
That was it, yeah. And they just turned out to be horrible signings, and yet the 2024 Mets was led by, like you were saying, Jose Iglesias, who's a pop star. Like, it's always the moves you don't expect that end up working out for the Mets. And it's the seasons you don't expect, like 2024, that you have this terrible start. You're arguably maybe the worst team in the league. No fans are showing up to the ballpark. And then that ends with like probably the greatest moment since I've been a Mets fan, which is the Francisco Lindor grand slam against the Phillies in the playoffs. So roller coaster is 100% the right word. I think that I when I look on Twitter and I see like doom and gloom from Mets fans and they're saying, Stearns has to go, like this should be blown up further, we should trade Lindor. I'm always kind of hesitant to go down that route because realistically, like you're saying, these are good players. They should turn it around, but it's hard not to doom and gloom when you lose 9 straight and you have the second highest payroll in baseball and it just doesn't seem to be working. I think that I wouldn't trade my Mets fandom for any other fandom. Obviously, any fan will say that, but because there's something about a charm of it. There's a great Mets book, actually. If you're interested in even just baseball, there's a great Mets book called So Many Ways to Lose, which is just kind of about how the Mets consistently lose in different ways and and how they keep coming back to the brink, like of almost being great, like being the best worst team, which I'd highly recommend. But it's a little bit of that. It's like how heartbreaking can it get? I mean, 2015 is a great example of like a year where they should have won that World Series, and the way in which they lost it was kind of more heartbreaking than if it had just kind of been like a normal loss. So yeah, I'd 100% agree with roller coaster.
In the wise words of Ronan Keating, life is a roller coaster, and you just got to ride it. But yeah, I want to take you back to last year. We'll do the negative. We'll do the real negative first, and then we can end up with a nicer note with 2024. And for me, what was probably a real turning point, I'll take you back. I've got the exact date ahead on me. It's June 12th. And it's Kodai Senga's season goes off the rails is what's on the article. It's on MLB.com. If you look up 10 moments that define New York Mets, collapse disaster, 10 moments eliminated postseason playoffs. That's the name of the link. So it's a real positive article. And I do remember this injury. So Kodai Senga had a really good first half last year. He was 1.47 ERA through 13 starts. You were playing, I can't remember who you were playing, but you were playing someone, and he makes a PFP. So he's running to cover first base, and he pulls his hamstring. And it's not looking good because for some reason hamstrings are important for pitchers. Who'd have thought? And he's just disappeared since that day. He posted a 5.9 ERA in his 9 outings when he came back from the injured list. And in the end, you guys actually optioned him to AAA. I know he had to accept the option, so he could have rejected it, and that would have been more fun in games. But I think he did the right thing. And, you know, you go from a 1.5 ERA to a 6 ERA, and that really set the tone. And at that point, you were 45-24. You were 5.5 games up in first place in the NL East. Yeah, it was probably what most people don't realize was that was the real turning point, because after that day, obviously, you then went on a massive slump. And you wouldn't think that it'd be one player, right? Because David Peterson had a good first half. Clay Holmes was looking good. But since then, it just went off the rails, I guess. And we're going to keep coming back to Kodai Senga being that key. You know, he was really, really good in 2024. What's happened? What has happened to Kodai Senga the last year and a half?
It's a great question. The easiest answer is that the velocity has just left. Like when he was pitching his best, he was pitching like 97, 98, and now he struggles. I mean, and he did hit that in his rehab starts, and his preseason stuff, and now it's just kind of gone back down to where it was before. I think the thing with Senga is, even when he was looking amazing at the beginning of last year, like the underlying numbers weren't brilliant. They were good, but not great. But I think his ERA was better than his pitching. But I think that injury just took all his confidence away. And it's like such an interesting one, because I think Mets fans were in some way more able to say goodbye to Pete Alonso because they blamed him for that Kodai Senga injury, because it was like you said, he went to first base and Pete threw it for some reason about 8 foot in the air, which meant Kodai Senga had to jump to catch the ball and landed on his hamstring, and it was all kind of lights out from there. It's tough. I think people always hold on to what he was in like his rookie year and his first year with the Mets, and they'll struggle to move on because of that. And I think this year again, what I could see happening is them just putting him back in AAA and being like, please figure this out. We need you to come back and be good. But at this point, I struggle to think about whether he can, because if he, say he takes a couple months off or spends a month in AAA and then comes back up and he still doesn't have his velocity, then he's just going to get swatted around. So I don't see it. I don't see it at this point, which is really sad, but I don't see it.
Yeah. Would you rather they just cut bait and just say, we'll DFA you, you're going to get your payday, bring up Jonah Tong, maybe just to get him off like another prospect, like a Christian Scott?
Yeah, I think Scott is the answer for now, but then you've got the Peterson problem of who steps in for him. And we have a couple of other good arms that I think are even maybe closer than Tong, because the funny thing is, like, if they just said to Tong, okay, you have 2 pitches and you should be really good at these pitches, which is what he was in AAA last year, I think he'd be more ready to come up. But they're actually doing what I wanted them to do with him, which is, okay, we're going to teach you 2 or 3 new pitches, and you should probably stay in AAA for this whole year to get them right. And so his ERA and stuff doesn't look that good at the moment, just because he's trying a lot of new stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas last year his ERA was, I think, the best in the entirety of the minor leagues. So Tong, I don't think should be an option, just for his like confidence sake and actually being able to teach him this stuff. But we got guys like Wenninger and Scott who might be a little closer. I think it's, and this is again a thing where it's like Mets fans shouldn't complain, because we are one of the only teams who has a realistic chance of maybe trading for a guy like Skubal or Skeens if the Pirates or the Tigers decide to move before the deadline.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's like, well, okay, I can complain all I want, but I'm not a Marlins fan who has like the lowest payroll and who has no realistic prospect of getting these guys. And yet, you know, if you're a Marlins fan, you're probably not devastated with how the season has started. Like, it's been okay. It's not been a disaster. So I don't know. The rotation is going to need some help at some point.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the most annoying thing for the Mets fans. Another thing I kind of want to touch on before we get to the really good stuff: Pete Alonso leaving in the off season. He left as the all-time Mets home run leader, which I think is wild, because obviously he's only just turned 30 or 31. I've always been a staunch defender of Pete Alonso. Like, the guy's obviously got a great bat, but I've always thought he was a better defender than people, you know, they lambast him for the errors and that. Do you think that should have been maybe the player you kept? Because obviously you got rid of like half the positional players from last year, McNeil, Nimmo, Alonso kind of being like the big 3. Do you think you should have maybe kept Alonso or made more of an effort to extend him? What's your opinion on that one?
That's a tough, because I do greatly agree that like Alonso had bad moments of defense, but his average moments weren't as bad as people thought they were.
Yeah.
He just had a few kind of like notable bad moments. But looking at how he's been with the Orioles so far, I don't think I'd be comfortable with him having a 5-year contract. Like, the bat speed is down. He's not hitting the ball hard. Like, I think by the time you get to year 4 of that contract, you're going to be like, oh my God, I really wish I didn't have this on my payroll. And we offered him a 5-year contract, I think, at the beginning of last year. And so that would have been a little bit more palatable. But no, I mean, as much as I love Pete, I'll always love Pete. I don't think it was necessarily the wrong time to move on. The interesting one is Nimmo, who looks unreal for the Rangers this year. I think it's like an over 900 OPS. Like, he looks so good. His defense is still bad, but you wouldn't say no to that bat. So yeah.
And he had a really good year last year, actually, when all was said and done. Anyway, that's enough doom and gloom. We're going to end on a more positive note. You know, the 2024 season, we've touched on it already. 20 games under 500, OMG, Grimace, Hawk Tour, all the memes you could possibly want, lead you that good vibes and a little bit of luck, lead you all the way to the CS against the Dodgers. It was kind of like a role reversal of last year, right? So 2025, you start well, you end poor. Year before, you start poor, you end well. What was kind of the main, and I know we touched on it when, you know, your debut episode was on the season review, and we did kind of touch on how good 2024 was. Was that your favorite season of being a Mets fan in kind of the however many years you've been a fan for? And if so, you know, what could the 2026 Mets learn from that team?
Yeah, 100%. It was my favorite, and that's probably because I haven't been a fan for long enough to kind of have those older, like, was it 2006, 2007, or like 2015 moments? But yeah, 100%. It felt special, I think, because you did have that connection to the players. And I think what the 2026 Mets could learn from it is that they actually probably should try to get on with each other. Like, I don't buy into the whole like clubhouse thing about like, oh, Lindor and Soto don't get on, you know, these guys aren't friends, whatever. I think that's all overblown, but they really looked like they were having fun playing baseball. And I know that comes from winning. Like, it's not just like, oh, you should have fun and then you'll win. Like the fun comes from the winning, but they have to, I think, at least try and show that they are connecting and having fun and trying, which is such a stupid word, but in order to get the fans back on side. Because even when the Mets were terrible last year through like July and September, like Citi Field was full on weekdays, like absolutely full. And I think once the Mets get back to Citi Field next week after the Chicago series, it's not going to be full. There's going to be a lot of empty seats. I think people are not watching, which is really reminiscent of 2014. So yeah, I think that would be the lesson is like, one, learn how to hit the ball and do it repeatedly. But two, like try and find some connection to the fans, something to hold on to. Whether that means Grimace comes out of retirement, I don't know, but it has to be something.
I mean, as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure Grimace is still available if you want to get him on a free agent deal.
Yeah, I take it. I take cash considerations.
Oh, you trade David Peterson by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
That's going to wrap up the main portion of our podcast. We've loved George talking about the Mets for half an hour because I couldn't do it. I'm not a Mets fan. And I feel like sometimes if you're a fan of one of these teams, you just need an outlet to kind of put your thoughts down on paper or, talk them into a microphone, which is good. Like I said, I'm not as down on the Mets as George is because I'm not a Mets fan. I've kind of got that brilliant bit of being able to be a little bit away from it and go, no, they are actually a good team. Like, well, the Cubs and the Mets are playing this weekend. There's only been one game in the series and it was 4-3 after 2 innings. So you guys were in the game and then we just kind of pulled away because Senga lost it. And I was still worried when Bichette or Robert came up to the plate. I'm very happy Juan Soto isn't playing. And Freddie Peralta was going in the Saturday game. So you'll probably nick one back there, which is fantastic. But yeah, that's kind of the Mets therapy session, let's say, over and done with. And also we need some really nice content for this weekend. And George hasn't been on in a while. So 6 birds, 1 stone. It's fantastic. We're going to end with Start Bench Cut, which we always do on our episodes with interviews or normal episodes. If you don't know what Start Bench Cut is, George has got a baseball-related Start Bench Cut. I've got a non-baseball-related Start Bench Cut. You start an option, you bench an option, you cut an option. If that doesn't make sense, you're either under the age of 5, in which case I forgive you, or you don't understand English, in which case, again, I can't speak any other language. I do apologize, guys. I'll try. Maybe we'll do a Spanish Start Bench Cut at some point. I don't know. Anyway, pretty easy. I always ramble on these things, and George has got to leave in a few minutes, so let's get these out of the way. George, have you got your baseball Start Bench Cut?
I do, yeah. I know this isn't a rounders roundup, but I have always got my eye on the home run draft standings, and there are currently 3 players left in the home run standings conveniently who haven't hit a home run.
Ooh.
So out of these 3 players, I guess which do you think will end up with the most home runs in a start bench cut, or which would you prefer to have in your team? So they are Jazz Chisholm, Taylor Ward, and, which was really surprising to me, I hadn't been paying attention, Fernando Tatis Jr.
I'm shocked by Tatis and even Taylor Ward. Jazz, I don't think Jazz knows the rules, is what we've learned in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, I'm going to start Tatis Jr. I think that's a fairly easy one. See, I know he played for Great Britain, but I can't stand Jazz Chisholm Jr. when he's not in a GB jersey. But then Taylor Ward, I'm going to bench Taylor Ward. I'm going to cut Jazz because I'm a bit concerned with Jazz this year. He said, especially in the offseason, he went, I'm going to go 50-50. There's a 50-50 raffle for the Cubs each weekend. Does he mean that? Is he going to get some money? I don't know. Him not knowing the rules. Yeah, I'm going to cut Jazz, bench Taylor, start Tatis. I think that's a fairly easy start, and then it gets tough after that. What about yourself?
Yeah, I do exactly the same. I think that is exactly how I feel. I think he got so interested in this idea that he could go from being like a 40 home run player to like a 50 home run, 50 stolen base player, that like he forgot how to actually play baseball. And all he's thinking about is the idea of those numbers. Not ideal.
Yeah, not great for old Jazz. Anyway, my start bench cut, it's going to be loosely baseball related because I didn't have time to think of a proper good one for a proper non-baseball related one. We're gonna end it on the Mets because this is kind of our main episode. We're going to talk about the three players that, the three long-term pieces that left and who you'd want back. So start bench cut, you got Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil.
Oof. I'd cut Jeff McNeil, even though he's had a decent start to the year, and he hit over 500 when he came back to Citi Field with the Athletics, that hurt a little bit. I'd cut Jeff McNeil just because he's not quite in the same league as those other guys. Just based on and this might be too short-term thinking, but just based on what he's done so far, I'd start Brandon Nimmo just because he has looked really good. And I think he took the Mets thing personally, probably because he was traded rather than just not re-signing, more so than Pete Alonso. And I think he's turned that into a bit of fuel. And Pete, I love Pete. I'll always love Pete, but I do worry a bit about the bat speed, the power, the hard hit, stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I go for. What do you think?
I'm not too dissimilar. I'm definitely cutting McNeil. I think that one's, again, it's like the tatties from the first one. It's pretty obvious. I didn't know how good Nimmo was up until last year. I always thought he was kind of like average outfielder, 15 home runs, like the Ian Haps of the world, who I famously very much dislike. I'm probably going to start Pete Alonso and I'm going to bench Nimmo, just because Alonso, I think he'll turn it back around. I might be sitting here in a year's time and you'll say to me, Gaz, what did you think about Pete Alonso last year? I'm going to be like, I'm terribly wrong. I'm so sorry. But yeah, I would have Pete Alonso at the Cubs somewhere, probably at DH. I wouldn't have him at first, but yeah, I think Nimmo is maybe a little bit underrated, and I think that we'll look back in a year's time who won that Rangers Mets deal. I think it's going to be the Rangers because Marcus Semien, I think the bat's just completely gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just my opinion. I'm not an expert on these things, and I don't claim to be. So. I think we're going to call it there. This has been a fantastic episode. George, thank you so much for joining me. I know this is your podcast as well, but it's always nice to chat to you.
No, thank you for having me. It really has been therapy. I appreciate it.
That's all right. We're open 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. You can contact Boo on our Instagram. She can't respond because she's a dog, but you're allowed to vent on there. Apparently that's the thing. Also have to say, George has been George. I've been Gaz. The Mets have been Metsing. If they could stop, George would be in a much happier place when it comes to baseball, and that's ultimately all we want. You've been fantastic. Hope you've enjoyed this episode of A Brit Does Baseball Does podcast. We will catch you on the next one. Thank you and goodbye.